Season 4 of Overlord is back, and I wanted to start by taking a more in-depth look at the world and characters of Overlord. So before I do my usual how powerful is a certain character breakdown, I want to first go over the terminologies and world building of the series itself, starting with the insanely broken world items. As usual, a spoiler warning as there will be some information regarding the light novel of Overlord, and if you enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this in the future, you know what to do. To start, what exactly are world items? Well, they are essentially the most powerful and rarest items found within the game of Yggdrasil, and they are sometimes referred to as balance breakers. This is because world items are so extremely broken and overpowered that some were even powerful enough to threaten or even outright destroy the very mechanics of the game itself. But of course, not all of the world items have such game-breaking abilities, although they still provide a level of advantage to anyone who possesses one, and their reputation in the game would immediately increase once they are known to have one. Now, the way in which the game developers introduced the world items were through the story and lore of the game itself. According to the lore of Yggdrasil, the world tree was once large and beautiful, covered with countless number of leaves, but one day a gigantic monster had appeared and started to consume the leaves until only 9 were left, which represented the 9 realms of Yggdrasil. The remnants of the leaves that were not eaten by the monster scattered across the 9 realms, and they turned into the world items, each carrying the power of a world inside of them. And during the period when Yggdrasil was still in service, there was only a total of 200 world items scattered throughout the game, with only 50 that were discovered by players, and there's even a subset of world items known as the 20 which were unrivaled in terms of their power. However, the 20 can only be used once and will disappear after they are used, only to respawn somewhere else in the world, kind of like Dragon Balls. That's why players normally choose not to use one of the 20 even if they are insanely powerful items, simply because it might fall into the hands of the enemy or it would just be too difficult to find the items all over again, and I'll go over some of the world items that are known later in the video. So anyways, the only way to resist or counter the effects of a world item is to either have one yourself or you possess a special job class. Although after the devs of Yggdrasil released a patch for the game, they made it possible for world item holders to be affected by another person's world item, but they have to first accept and allow the influence of the opposing world item on their own volition, otherwise it would still not work. And in Season 1, we learned that there are in fact world items in the new world, but it's unknown how many of them actually exist here. They were actually brought over by previous players of Yggdrasil and they have been scattered across the continent. Either they were claimed by the native inhabitants of the new world like the Slain Theocracy, or they are still lost and have yet to be discovered. With that, let's start by taking a look at one of the 20 called Longinus, and when this item is used, you are allowed to pick any player or NPC you want, completely deleting or removing them from existence. This included all their character data and progress in the game. This is definitely a cruel way to screw with someone, but there is a price for activating this item, and that you have to delete your own character data as well. And once the data is deleted, not even cache items or resurrection spells will be able to recover them, and the only way was to use the resurrection powers of another world item. And it was hinted that Longinus is one of the 2 world items under the 20 that the guild Eins Ulgaun is in possession of. In any case, we have another one of the 20 called 5 Elements Overcoming, and this is a fairly simple yet powerful world item. It's an item that allows you to contact the devs of the game, and you can make a request to change a part of the game's magic system. Now, this might sound overpowered, but the request made by someone who uses this item still has to be reviewed and approved by the devs, so I'm guessing there's still a limit to how crazy the request can be. And since we're on the topic of items that allow people to make requests, there's actually a more powerful version in the 20 called Ouroboros. This item also allows you to contact the devs of Yggdrasil to make a single wish, but unlike 5 Elements Overcoming, your request is not limited to just changing the magic system, and you can basically request anything you want, within reasons of course. And actually in the past, the guild Eins Ulgaun was once targeted by an enemy guild that possessed this item. Because Eins Ulgaun had laid claim to the 7 hidden mines and they had a monopoly on the rare matters found within, the enemy guild decided to use Ouroboros to completely remove their presence and restrict them from gaining access to one of the mines for at least a month, which feels like such a waste. I mean, they could have wished for something much crazier, like the author even said that you can literally request to copy or acquire the effects of other broken world items. But moving on, I want to mention 2 of the last known 20 called Ahura Mazda and World Savior respectively. With Ahura Mazda, the only known information about this item is that it's capable of inflicting powerful worldwide AoE damage on targets that have negative karma value, meaning that only people aligned with evil will be affected. And it has been speculated that this item is a counter to the world item that Demiurge had mentioned back in Season 2, which allows the user to summon an unlimited amount of powerful demons. As for World Savior, this item is said to be a simple club, and initially it doesn't do much damage to targets, but it does get exponentially stronger with each use until the point where even the slightest touch can destroy a high level player or NPC. And if the item is used correctly, you can literally solo the entire guild of Einzugang, players and NPCs combined, so you can guess how broken this item actually is. However, since it's a single use item, it kinda defeats the purpose, don't you think? I mean, the conditions aren't specified, so maybe as long as you are equipping World Savior, it probably won't disappear until it is either unequipped or you die. But hey, feel free to share your own theories about World Savior in the comments down below. So now that I've finished talking about the 20, let's talk about some of the other world items, starting with the one that was used to take control of shelter in Season 1 known as Downfall of Castle and Country. And the item resembles a traditional Chinese dress called Qi Pao. This was one of the world items that the Slain Theocracy possesses, and it was an item belonging to the 6 great gods, supposedly the first ever Yggdrasil players to be transported to the new world. As for what it does, this piece of clothing allows the wearer to take control of the mind of any creature regardless of any immunity, unless they possess a world item and they can only control one target at a time, with the effects lasting permanently. However, it seems like the mind control process can be interrupted as we see how Xiaotia managed to kill the wearer before the effect fully took place, leaving her in a sort of idle mode. Anyways, the only way to remove the effect is to kill the mind control person and resurrecting them. Moving on, another one that we saw in the anime but not really mentioned much is the world item called the Throne of Kings. The guild Einzugang was actually rewarded this world item when they managed to conquer and clear the Great Tomb of Nazarick on their first try. When someone sits on the throne, they are granted a stat buff and they are able to see the stats of the other inhabitants within Nazarick. Now, there are some theories regarding this item as well, like it is said to protect the entirety of Nazarick from divination magic and the game-breaking effects of other world items. There are also people that think this item was actually a forgotten death item used to test the dungeon inside of Nazarick, but feel free to share your own thoughts on this item. Aside from that, there's another lesser known world item called the Cleric Stone, and it's considered a consumable item that can only be used once, but it's not part of the 20. The guild Einzugang actually managed to obtain one by accident when they still had control over the 7 hidden mines. They had discovered that one of the 7 mines produced a prismatic ore called celestial uranium, a critical element for creating the world item. When they had stored and used an unspecified amount of celestial uranium, it was converted into the Cleric Stone. As for the ability of the item, it can be used in various ways, like using it as a golem's core or as material to enhance your weapons and armor. It also works like Ouroboros and 5 Elements Overcoming, in that this item allows you to contact the game devs to make a request, but the conditions for the request are unknown. And I personally think that this item is more overpowered, simply because it's probably easier to obtain than the other 2 world items, and you can technically just keep making wishes unless there's a limit. Having said that, avarice and generosity is another world item that we saw in the anime, and this is actually my favorite in terms of design. I mean, it just looks so freaking awesome. As for what it does, it's basically used to absorb XP and you can store it for later use, but other than that, not much else is known about it. However, I think it's quite fitting for Maret to have this world item since he specializes in powerful AoE magic. He can effectively and efficiently farm XP by killing a large amount of people quickly. Now, besides Maret, Aura 2 was given a world item called Depiction of Nature and Society, and how this item works is that you can isolate a targeted space or seal an opponent inside a separate dimension. But to be more precise, when you choose a target in the real world, the item will then swap the target with a painted landscape and isolate it, while converting the target into a painted landscape as well. With the exception of world item holders, everything within the targeted space will be trapped inside this alternate dimension. Also, the user can select from 100 different types of worlds, and each of them has specific terrain effects, ranging from dangerous lava lands that deal continuous fire damage to frozen wastelands that have freezing effects or thunder plains that rain down constant lightning strikes, and the list goes on. With regards to that, you won't be trapped inside forever, and there was actually an enemy guild that had once used this to trap the guild members of Einzugang, but they managed to escape using one of the 40 randomly generated escape routes. Of course, finding and clearing the escape routes were not easy either. That's why if you successfully escape from the separate dimension, you are immediately granted ownership over Depiction of Nature and Society without needing to kill the original owners, making it somewhat easier to obtain than most world items. And just a heads up, we'll likely be getting a chance to see this world item be used in Season 4 of Overlord. Speaking of world items that we get to see in Season 4, we finally saw the one that belonged to Albedo called Jinungagap, and it was actually supposed to be shown in Season 1 but it was sadly left out. It has the appearance of a scepter, but Albedo has stated that it can transform into a bardish as well. Originally, this item wasn't in her possession, but during some point in time, this item was secretly given to her by her creator Tabula Smaragdina. As for what the item does, it specializes in destroying large areas and is especially powerful against physical objects like buildings, but not really that useful against individual targets. It was even said to be weaker than a specialized divine class item when it comes to individual fighting. However, the redeeming quality for this item is the fact that it cannot be destroyed or damaged by anything. So those are some of the more detailed world items, and before I end the video, I wanted to mention the 2 world items that were given to Demiurge and Cocytus during the Bloody Valkyrie arc. Now, not much is known about them and what they do, but we can roughly guess their effects just with their names. Hygeia's Chalice is one of the world items and is slightly inspired by the Greek goddess of health Hygeia and the Bowl of Hygeia, a symbol used for pharmacology, the science of how drugs act on biological systems and how the body responds to the drug. Since both these elements are related to medicine, the world item probably has some sort of insanely broken healing properties and effects. As for the last one, it's called Billion Blades, and just from the name alone, it probably has something to do with bladed weapons, and it likely allows the user to control bladed weapons to attack people like you would see in Asian fantasy movies. To close things out, I just wanted to mention Ainz is currently in possession of a total of 11 world items, 2 of which are under the 20, and during his time in Yggdrasil, his guild actually has the most world items, so definitely impressive to say the least. But yeah, that's everything on the world items, and let me know in the comments down below which one of them are your favorites. Also, I'll be doing more Overlord content for upcoming videos, so hopefully you give it a chance. And if you enjoyed the video and want to see more, be sure to give it a like and maybe subscribe to the channel if you're interested. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.